My stepmother was at my door again, demanding a retake of the perfect family photo. But this was my apartment, my name on the lease, and the person secretly filming her tantrum was my little brother. I never knew that years ago. After she beat me just for not smiling, he started a quiet plan, a plan that even I, with all my military training, never saw coming. My name is Marlo Keaton. The time is 6 a.m. The pounding on my apartment door is not a knock. It is an assault. It is the kind of frantic, rhythmic hammering that sounds less like a request for entry and more like someone trying to break the lock, a vibration that travels straight from the particle board, through the cheap frame, and into my bones. I do not just wake up, I deploy. My training floods my system before my conscious mind even registers the time or the location. Years of service have hardwired my responses, carving pathways in my nerves that sleep cannot dull. I slide off the mattress, not sitting up, landing in a silent crouch on the cold hardwood floor. My heart hammers against my ribs. A trapped bird. Adrenaline burns away the fuzzy edges of sleep, sharpening the world into high-definition clarity. I move low and fast, pressing my back against the wall adjacent to the entryway, staying clear of the fatal funnel, the direct line of fire from the door. My eye goes to the peephole. I take one, steadying breath, then lean in. The fisheye lens warps the hallway into a grotesque caricature, but the players are unmistakable. Lorna, my stepmother. Her face is already a mask of foundation and righteous fury, her mouth set in that familiar line of absolute entitlement. Beside her, my father, David, looks gray and tired, clutching a thermos of coffee like a lifeline. Behind them, obscured, stands my half-brother, Eli, swimmy and indistinct. Lorna is holding a large tote bag, the kind she uses to carry props for her meticulously curated life. And then I see him, just behind them, a man I do not recognize, looking profoundly uncomfortable, is holding a tripod, a rolled-up white backdrop, and a box of soft lights, a professional photographer. At 6 a.m, the pounding stops, replaced by her voice, which is somehow worse. Marlo, open this door. Today is the family photo shoot. This apartment is for the whole family, not just you. Her voice grates, loud enough to wake the neighbors, which is precisely the point. Shame is her primary weapon. I close my eyes for 1 second, grabbing the thick manila folder I keep on the small entryway table. I keep it there precisely for this kind of emotional ambush. I flick the deadbolt and open the door just enough for the security chain to catch. It is a 3-inch gap of steel and shadow. I am still in the threadbare olive drab t-shirt and sweats I sleep in. My hair is a wreck. I do not care. I hold the folder up to the gap, its edges parallel with the door frame. This is my apartment, I say. My voice is quiet, flat. It is the voice I learned to use when shouting was both pointless and dangerous. My name is on the deed. My name is on the VA loan. My name is on the utilities. If you want to take pictures, Lorna, you should have called to ask the owner. She huffs, a sound of pure, unadulterated disgust, and completely ignores me. She turns to the photographer, who is visibly trying to blend into the bland hallway paint. She is just being moody, Lorna announces, projecting for the entire floor. She gets like this. Go ahead and start setting up right here in the hall. We will get her to cooperate. The photographer visibly winces. He looks at me, then at her, then at his expensive equipment, clearly calculating how much of a scene he is willing to endure for his day rate. He obediently but hesitantly starts to unzip a bag. I look past Lorna, past my father's averted, defeated gaze, and lock eyes with Eli. He is standing in the back, silent, his head down. He looks older than I remember, tired and pale under the fluorescent lights. When he feels my stare, his eyes flick up to mine. I see a flash of something. Guilt, maybe, or apology, before he looks away, shuffling his feet. I notice a small, specific detail. He's clutching his phone in one hand, but he keeps it angled down, the screen dark, his thumb resting near the volume rocker, half hidden behind his back. My father steps forward, raising his free hand in that weak, familiar gesture of peace. The smell of stale, burnt coffee wafts through the gap. "Come on, Marlo. Do not be so difficult. Your mother just wants one decent family picture. It is for the newsletter, for her new charity fundraiser." "Her charity," I repeat, the words tasting like ash. I tap the manila folder against the doorframe. A sharp, repetitive sound. "If she wants to use this apartment's image to solicit donations, she can start by stopping the lie that she bought a house for her daughter. She did not buy it. She did not co-sign. I did. Every single cent, every single shift, every single sacrifice." The air in the hallway crackles. It becomes thick, suffocating. Down the hall, Mrs. Petrov's door opens a crack, a sliver of a curious, wrinkled eye peering out. Lorna sees her audience. The switch is instantaneous. Her entire posture changes. Her shoulders slump. Her perfectly manicured hand flies to her chest, and her voice cracks with practiced, theatrical victimhood. "You see?" she gasps, loud enough for Mrs. Petrov to hear clearly, loud enough to carry to the elevator bank. "You all see how ungrateful she is? After everything I've done for her, a stepmother only asks for one picture, one morning, and this is the humiliation I get. This is the thanks." My jaw tightens. The old shame, the hot, familiar flush of being painted as the unhinged, difficult one, rises in my throat. But I am not 19 anymore. I am not trapped in her house. This is my territory. I push the folder back onto the table, my hand steady. Then, with a deliberate motion, I slide the security chain free. The door swings open fully. I do not move. I stand, feet planted shoulder-width apart, blocking the entryway with my body. I am calm. I am a wall. Lorna's faux tears stop midstream, her expression hardening when she realizes her performance did not make me crumble or concede. I look her dead in the eye. "The last time you forced me in front of a camera and told me to smile," I say, my voice dangerously even, each word a carefully placed stone. "You waited until we got home, and then you beat me black and blue because I was not happy enough. There will be no reenactments today. There will be no photo shoot, not in my house." The photographer freezes, his hand halfway to a light stand. My father flinches as if struck, looking down at his shoes, at the thermos, at anything but me. The silence in the hallway is absolute, heavier than the pre-dawn darkness outside. Lorna's face contorts, the mask of the perfect wounded mother melting away to reveal the raw, incandescent fury underneath. And in that precise, silent moment, just over her shoulder, I see Eli. He has his phone raised, just slightly, not high enough to be obvious. The lens is aimed, not quite at me, not quite at her, but at the entire ugly tableau. It is a fractional movement, perhaps accidental, perhaps not. I do not know it then. I do not know that this single, shaky recording is the first piece of the unthinkable. I do not know that my silent, scared little brother, the boy who always did as he was told, has finally chosen a side. All I know is that for the first time in my life, I am the one holding the keys, and I am not letting her in. That single, sharp sentence hangs in the hallway air, a grenade with the pin pulled. Not in my house. The memory of the last time isn't a memory at all. It's a parallel track, a ghost reel playing over the present moment. The fluorescent light of the hallway flickers, and for a second, it's the hot, sterile white of a photo studio. The smell of my father's burnt coffee is replaced by the chemical tang of hairspray and the dusty scent of fake props. I was 19 years old. It was just after high school graduation. I was living in that suffocating suburban split level with my father, Lorna, and a much smaller Eli, who was maybe 8 or 9 back then. Lorna's obsession with the perfect family was not just a quirk. It was the organizing principle of her entire existence. It was a full-blown religion, and she was its high priestess. Every holiday, every minor event, required a new, coordinated, professionally photographed tableau, matching sweaters for Christmas, pastel polos for Easter, crisp white shirts for the 4th of July. All smiles had to be Instagram ready, long before that was even a common phrase. That day was the Christmas card shoot, the one we sent to everyone in her church congregation, to all her clients, to distant relatives who only knew us as a two-dimensional, glossy image. I was exhausted, bone deep, soul-crushing tired. I was pulling double shifts at a diner, the graveyard shift, saving every dollar I could scrape together for community college classes, for application fees, for anything that would be a down payment on an exit plan. I had gotten home at 3 a.m., slept for 2 hours, and was then shaken awake by Lorna to get into a scratchy forest green turtleneck that smelled like mothballs. I sat under the hot lights of the rented studio space, my face feeling stiff and numb. I tried to smile. I really did. But the expression felt like a mask made of wet cement, heavy and cracking. My eyes burned. Lorna, in a matching turtleneck, hovered over the photographer's shoulder like a vulture. "Marlo, sit up straight," she hissed, her voice a stage whisper that carried across the entire room. "Suck in your stomach, and for God's sake, don't look like you've just been kidnapped. This is a happy family." The photographer, a nervous man with a thin mustache, kept clicking. "Okay, big smiles. Everyone, look at me." Lorna held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop." She walked over to the photographer and grabbed his camera, clicking through the preview screen. Her face darkened. She marched over to me, holding the camera up, the tiny screen glowing. "Look at this," she seethed, jabbing a polished fingernail at my digital face. "Marlo, you are ruining the entire picture. Eli is smiling. Your father is smiling. I am smiling. Why? Why can't you just smile normally for me? For one single hour?" The studio was silent. The photographer was busying himself, adjusting a light that did not need adjusting. My father stared at a fake reindeer prop. Eli, small and confused in his own tiny sweater, looked from Lorna's angry face to my tired one. A wire snapped inside me. It was not loud, but it was final. I looked up at her, my voice small but clear in the artificial quiet. "Because there's nothing in this house to smile about." You could have heard a snowflake land. The photographer's face went pale. My father visibly recoiled. Lorna's eyes narrowed into slits. She did not say another word. She simply snatched her purse, grabbed Eli by the arm, and said, "We're done here." The car ride home was a vacuum. The silence was absolute, a pressurized, agonizing void that promised a violent explosion. My father drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the road, already a ghost. The moment the front door closed, Lorna erupted. My father immediately disappeared. He did not walk. He simply evaporated from the hallway, melting into his study and turning on the television. The muffled sound of a basketball game became the soundtrack for what happened next. I will not describe the details. I will not give her the dignity of a play-by-play. My training taught me to analyze after-action reports, to break down every action and reaction, but I will not do it for this. I will say that her rage went far beyond the limits of words. She unleashed all her fury on the body of a girl who had just crossed the legal threshold, as if turning 18 was a reason for every slap to be considered disciplining an adult, instead of what it was. It was not about the picture. It was about the loss of control. It was about me speaking a single sentence of truth that punctured her perfect, fragile narrative. The worst part was not the sting on my face or the way my ribs ached where she shoved me against the wall. The worst part was that I looked up, past her contorted, screaming face, and saw Eli. He was standing halfway down the stairs, frozen. He was clutching his old, worn-out teddy bear, the one with the missing eye. He was not crying. He was just watching, his 9-year-old face pale with a profound, uncomprehending terror. He was watching his mother become a monster, all because of a photograph. He could not understand how a smile could be this important. how the failure to produce one could warrant this level of cruelty. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and I saw his panic, and he saw my nothing. I had just gone numb. Later, she posted the picture. She must have paid the photographer extra for the digital files. She found one, just one, from before my comment, where my expression was not a smile but at least not a grimace. She photoshopped it. She brightened my eyes, turned up the corners of my mouth into an uncanny valley of happiness. She posted it on her blog and on her new Facebook page with the caption, "The holidays are stressful, but a perfect family is a blessing from God. So proud of my beautiful children." The blue and purple bruise blooming under my turtleneck, just above my collarbone, did not get a mention. That night, locked in my room, I packed a duffel bag. I made a vow to the cracked ceiling. It was not a vow of revenge. It was a vow of escape. I promised myself that if I ever got out of that house, I would never, ever let another human being command me to smile. I would never let my face be used as a prop for someone else's lie. The metallic clang of Mrs. Petrov's door slamming shut down the hall snaps me back to the present. The 6 a.m. light in my apartment building feels cold and thin. Lorna is still standing in my doorway, her face pale with rage from my refusal. The photographer is actively packing his bags, a man making a sound financial and legal decision to flee. That's why I'm standing here, blocking the door. That's why the word photo is a trigger. It's not just a picture, it's the entire system of control, of image over reality, of her narrative over my truth. And I remember something else from that night. 19 years ago, hours after Lorna's rage had burned itself out, after the house was silent except for the drone of the television, my bedroom door creaked open. I pretended to be asleep. Eli had slipped in. He was so small he barely made a sound. He tiptoed over, and I felt him place something on my pillow. He hesitated, then ran out, pulling the door shut with a soft click. I waited, then opened my eyes. He had left me a small box of cartoon character Band-Aids and a single, crumpled piece of notebook paper. On it, in his clumsy, blocky 9-year-old scrawl, were 2 sentences. "You don't have to smile for me. I still believe you." I look at Lorna, standing in my hallway, her face a mask of indignation, demanding entry. Then I look past her, to the man Eli has become, who is still holding his phone, the lens still pointed in our direction. The Lorna from the past and the Lorna from this morning blur into one, the same woman, with the same sick obsession, demanding the same lie. But she is not looking at the same girl. The 19-year-old with bruises is gone, the woman standing in this doorway. The woman whose name is on the deed is a soldier, and this is my line in the sand. The incident at the photo studio was not just a crack, it was a detonation. I was 19, and I finally understood that my father would never be a shield. He was, at best, a spectator, and at worst, Lorna's willing accomplice. I left 2 weeks later. I did not just run away to some random city, waitressing and sleeping in a car. That was too chaotic, too vulnerable. I needed a plan. I needed structure. I needed an exit that was, on paper, unimpeachable. So, I enlisted. I walked into the National Guard recruitment office, drawn by the promise of a paycheck, college benefits, and most importantly, a contract that legally required me to be somewhere else. I traded the unpredictable, shrieking tyranny of Lorna's living room for the structured, predictable yelling of a drill sergeant. It felt like a promotion. Basic training was designed to break you down and rebuild you. I was already broken. I just needed the rebuilding part. While other recruits struggled with the discipline, I thrived on it. Waking up at 5 a.m. to an alarm was better than waking up at 7 a.m. to a slamming door and an accusation. I learned to channel the ambient anger that had simmered under my skin for years. I learned to fire a rifle, to read a compass, to pack a wound, to control my breathing, to turn my fear and rage into cold, efficient fuel. I learned to make my bed with corners so sharp they could cut, and I learned to be invisible when I needed to be. The pay was steady, it was not much, but it was mine, and every single month, I did what I still believed was my duty. I wired a percentage of it home, not to her, never for her. It was for my father. To help with the mortgage, I told myself. To ease the burden. It was the last thread of the daughter I was supposed to be, a thread I was not yet strong enough to cut. My absence was the single greatest gift I could have ever given Lorna. It gave her a vacuum, and she filled it with her own narrative. My enlistment, my honorable, desperate escape, became the cornerstone of her new identity. The stepmother saint. She told the neighbors, the women in her Bible study, everyone at the church, that my service was her idea. Marlo was always so spirited, she would say, her voice dripping with that infuriating, false modesty, a hand placed gently on her chest. Just a rebellious heart, but I knew, I prayed on it, and I knew she just needed structure. I taught her about responsibility, about serving something greater than herself, and now, well, we are just so proud. She had done it. She had successfully weaponized my escape and rebranded it as her parenting triumph. While I was learning field medicine, sleeping in barracks, and pulling 24-hour shifts, Lorna was building her digital empire. She started a blog, A Stepmom's Grace. Then came the Instagram feed, a perfectly curated, sun-drenched shrine to her domestic perfection. She posted vlogs of her baking family recipes in a kitchen that, I noticed, was looking suspiciously upgraded. She posted smiling photos of her and my father at church fundraisers, her arm linked through his, her teeth blindingly white. And Eli was her centerpiece. He grew up in front of her lens, a living prop in her one-woman show. In every photo, he was the perfect, compliant son, always smiling that same placid, practiced smile, always neatly dressed in a polo shirt that matched the new throw pillows, always looking at her with a gaze of manufactured adoration. My rock, she would caption a photo of the two of them, teaching this one what true family values really mean. The unspoken message was clear to everyone, most of all to me. Unlike the other one, the broken one I fixed and sent away. No one saw what happened when the camera was off. No one heard the hissed threats I knew were still there. Do not ruin this picture. Eli, do not you dare. Smile, smile. And the money I sent home? The money I thought was for my father. For the mortgage? I found out later. Through a single stray comment my father let slip on a phone call, where it really went. It paid for the new quartz countertops that served as the backdrop for her cooking vlogs. It paid for the professional veneers that made her smile even wider and brighter in her Mother of the Year nomination photos for the church newsletter. It paid for the new photographer, a much more expensive one than the man from the studio, one who knew how to use filters and lighting to make her look perpetually benevolent. My required leave was her Super Bowl. I would fly home, exhausted, craving nothing but silence in a dark room, and walk into a house that was prepped for a stage play. "We are having a welcome home hero brunch," she would trill, pulling me into a stiff, camera-ready hug that smelled of hairspray and ambition. It was never just brunch. It was a content opportunity. She would force me into a new, clean shirt, something she had picked out, something more flattering. She would make me stand in the perfectly lit foyer, under the Welcome Home banner she had ordered from Etsy. She would loop her arm through mine, pull Eli to her other side, and have my father take the picture. "The prodigal daughter returns," she wrote under one photo so heavily filtered it barely looked like me. "So blessed to have my soldier girl home, safe and sound. All my sacrifices were worth it." It was obscene. I felt like a zoo animal, trotted out to prove the zookeeper's kindness. I tried. On one of those visits, I was 22, maybe 23. I had a little more confidence, a little more steel in my spine. I finally cornered my father alone in the garage while he was tinkering with the lawnmower. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice level, "we have to talk about her, about what she does, about what she did." He did not look at me. He just kept wiping an oily rag over a part that was already clean. His back was rigid. "Marlo, don't. Just don't. It is all in the past. Do not dig it all up again." "It is not in the past," I insisted, my voice rising. "She is still doing it. She is lying to everyone, using me, using Eli. She is telling people she paid for my education. She is telling people she saved me. That is not what happened." He finally threw the rag down on the workbench, the sound sharp in the quiet garage. "What do you want from me, Marlo? What? You know how your mother is. She is difficult. She is under a lot of pressure. Just let it go, for the sake of peace." That was it, the final door of hope, the one I had foolishly kept propped open, slammed shut and locked. He was not a hostage. He was not a victim. He was her willing co-conspirator. The price of his precious peace was my truth. In that moment, I realized I was not a daughter to her. I was not even a stepdaughter. I was evidence. I was the living, breathing before picture in her glorious, self-congratulatory after story, my uniform, my service, my entire independent life. It was all just proof of her miraculous success. The anger that night was different. It was cold. It was sharp. It was productive. I sat in my old childhood bedroom, staring at the faded posters on the wall, and I stopped thinking about escape. I started thinking about ownership. I got on my laptop. I did not search for therapists. I searched for VA home loan requirements. I signed up for online courses in personal finance. I opened a high-yield savings account at a completely different bank, one she had no connection to. I started triple-checking my credit score. I learned about escrow, and fixed rates, and debt-to-income ratios. I would not just leave. I would build a fortress. I would own my own walls, my own floors, my own front door. I would build a life so solid, so completely mine, that she could not touch it, and she could not spin it. On my last visit home, just before I started seriously apartment hunting in Denver, Eli found me in the kitchen late at night. He was a teenager now, tall and painfully awkward, all gangly limbs and a voice that cracked. He fidgeted, avoiding my eyes. "Hey," he mumbled, staring at the floor. I saw on your laptop. You were looking at apartments?" I froze. My first instinct was that Lorna had sent him, that he was a spy. "What about it?" He rushed to speak, his voice dropping to a whisper, terrified she might hear. "No, I was just wondering, if you ever get your own house, like really your own, do you think?" He finally looked up, and his eyes were so full of a desperate, quiet hope it almost knocked the wind out of me. "Do you think I could come over? To visit? Just to hang out?" That was the question. Not, can I escape, but is there a safe place? My throat felt thick. "Yeah, Eli," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "Yeah, you can come over any time. I promise." Before I left for my final tour, I had to attend a Sunday service. Lorna was being honored for something, some committee, some fundraiser. As I walked into the fellowship hall, I stopped. There it was, hanging above the pastry table, printed on a huge vinyl banner over 6 feet tall, advertising the annual stewardship drive. It was the photo, the one from the studio, all those years ago. My face, 19 years old, tired, and full of despair, had been grotesquely photoshopped. The digital artists had warped my mouth into that horrifying, dead-eyed smile. My face, my lie, was being used to ask people for money, to represent the perfect, God-fearing family that was the bedrock of their community. I stood there, in my uniform, looking at that banner, and I knew I was not just buying an apartment anymore. I was going to war. It took years. Years of scrimping, of taking every extra shift, of living in shared barracks, of saying no to every minor luxury. But after my last tour, my file was thick. My service record was spotless. My credit score was in the high 700s. And my savings account finally had a number in it that mattered. I qualified for the VA Home Loan Guarantee Program. It was not a handout. It was a benefit I had bled for. I found it after 3 months of obsessive searching. A small, one-bedroom apartment in a decent building in Denver. It was not the suburbs. It was mine. It had a big window that faced west, and I knew the mountain sunsets would be incredible. I started the application process. It was a mountain of paperwork, but it was my mountain. I gathered my pay stubs, my discharge papers, my bank statements going back 2 years. Everything was clean. I had a debt-to-income ratio that made the loan officer smile. I was pre-approved in 48 hours, solely on my own merit. When I made the mistake of mentioning it on a call with my father, Lorna got on the line. Her voice was suddenly high and syrupy, a tone that always set my teeth on edge. "Marlo, honey, that is wonderful. Oh, you must be so overwhelmed. Those mortgage people are just sharks. You know, they try to trap young people, especially our brave veterans, in those terrible balloon payment loans. You must let me help you. I have a friend in real estate. I will look over all the paperwork for you, just to be safe." "No, thank you, Lorna," I said, my voice flat. "I have it under control. The VA program is very straightforward." "Nonsense," she trilled. "You do not know what you do not know. I insist. I am your mother, Marlo. I just want what is best for you. Why do you always have to fight me when I'm only trying to protect you?" It went on for 10 minutes, the classic cycle. The sweet offer, the firm refusal, the wounded accusation, the guilt. I was tired. I was coordinating moving logistics and trying to line up a new job. I finally caved on a single, stupid point. "Fine, I am not sending you my financial data, but I can send you the bank's initial offer sheet. You can review it if you want." A week later, a thick, overnight envelope from her arrived at my temporary housing on base. It was not the offer sheet I had sent her. It was a stack of official-looking documents. When I called her, annoyed, she brushed it off. "Oh, those are just some standard forms. Honey, my friend said you would need them. It is just to update your tax information with the state, and I put in a little form that gives me permission to pay your utility bills for you if you get called away on a sudden assignment. You know, just for convenience, so you do not default on anything while you are serving our country. And here's the part where I have to look you in the eye and tell you the truth. I was trained to spot an IED from 500 yards. I was trained to break down a rifle in the dark. I was trained to distrust everything. But I was still, somewhere deep inside, the girl who wanted to believe that her family would not actively, legally, screw her over. I was busy. I was tired. The lie about paying my bills sounded plausible, like something she would do to maintain her image of the perfect, helpful mother. I signed the papers. I did not read the fine print in Section 4, Subsection C, the part that mentioned limited power of attorney for financial inquiries. I signed it, stuck it in the return envelope, and sent it back. I was an idiot. The closing went perfectly smoothly. I sat in a sterile office with my broker and the title agent. I signed my name until my hand cramped. I read every line of that document, the mortgage, the deed, and my name was the only one on it. Not Lorna, not my father, not as a co-borrower, not as a co-owner. It was 100% mine. The broker shook my hand, gave me the keys, and I walked out of that office feeling, for the first time in my life, completely sovereign. Move-in day was chaos. It was just me, a rented truck, and 3 friends from my unit. We were covered in sweat, hauling boxes up 3 flights of stairs, fueled by pizza and cheap beer. Until 2 in the afternoon, that is when Lorna, my father, and Eli showed up. Lorna was not in moving clothes. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater, designer jeans, and full makeup. She was holding a selfie stick. "We are here," she announced to the empty hallway, already filming. "Just coming to check on my baby girl's new place. Oh, it is so wonderful to see all our hard work finally pay off." She proceeded to walk through my half-empty apartment, live streaming the entire thing to her stepmom's Grace followers. She filmed my bare mattress on the floor, my boxes of military gear, the tiny kitchen, and she narrated, "Look at this light. I just knew this unit was the one for her. It was so hard to get the bank to approve everything, but we pulled it off. We are so proud to have been able to give her this start." My friends, confused, just kept moving boxes, trying to stay out of her shot. I was too stunned and too tired to do anything but stand there, covered in grime, while she performed for her phone. The video ended with her hugging me stiffly, me still holding a box of pots and pans, while she kissed my temple. "Welcome home, honey," she whispered, for the camera. The fallout started within days. I ran into a neighbor by the mailboxes. "Oh, you are Marlo. Your mother is just the sweetest woman on earth. It is so generous what she and your father did, buying you this place." A woman from her church, who lived in the next building over, stopped me in the parking lot. "I saw Lorna's video. What a blessing. You must be so grateful to her, after all the trouble you gave her as a teen. This just proves she is a true Christian saint." The narrative was set. I was the ungrateful problem child, and she was the benevolent savior who had literally bought my redemption in the form of a 700-square-foot apartment. I called her. My voice was shaking with a rage I had not felt since that day in the studio. "Lorna, you have to stop. You have to tell people the truth. You did not buy this house. I bought this house." Her voice was calm, a cool, smooth river of condescension. "Marlo, dear, why are you getting so hysterical? It is just semantics. Of course your name is on the papers. Honey, we wanted you to feel a sense of accomplishment, but in the eyes of the community, in God's eyes, this was a family achievement. We all supported you. I provided guidance. I did the hard work with the banks. You just signed. Why are you trying to erase me from our family's success?" I hung up. I actually hung up the phone on her, a first. I wrote it off as her usual toxic narcissism. It was just about her image. It was just about her story. It was just words. I had the keys. I had the deed. I was safe. I let it go. I told myself the whispers did not matter. I did not know then what I know now. I did not know that she had already taken that limited power of attorney, the one I had so stupidly signed, and called my mortgage lender. I did not know she had introduced herself as Marlo's financial manager and was exploring other financial options available to me. I did not know she was already laying the groundwork to link my new, hard-won asset to her next failing business venture. I was too busy unpacking. I was too busy starting my new job. I was too busy finally breathing. A week later, an envelope came in the mail. It was not a bill. It was from a different bank, one I had never heard of. It was addressed to me, but the return address was a commercial lending department. I figured it was just more mortgage junk mail, solicitations for refinancing. I tossed it, unopened, into the back of my kitchen junk drawer. I slammed the door. The heavy thud of the deadbolt sliding into the frame was the most satisfying sound I had heard all morning. Silence. On the other side of the door, I heard a hissed, furious, "David, you get the car, now," I heard the photographer, scrambling to gather his equipment, murmuring apologies. I heard the ding of the elevator, and then, nothing. The adrenaline began its slow, painful retreat, leaving that familiar, shaky exhaustion in its wake. My forehead rested against the cool, painted wood. It was barely 6:15 in the morning. I thought I had at least a few hours. I thought she would wait. Regroup. Plan her next assault. The peace lasted exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes was all it took for me to start a pot of coffee and sink onto my sofa. Surrounded by my own life, my own boxes, my own silence. Then my phone, charging on the kitchen counter, began to buzz. It was not a single buzz. It was a swarm. It lit up and vibrated without pause, skittering across the quartz countertop like a dying insect. A relentless, furious barrage of notifications, Facebook tags, Instagram mentions, text messages from numbers I had not seen in years. My stomach turned to ice. She was fast. I knew she was. But this was a new record. I picked up the phone. my thumb hovering over the screen. I opened Facebook first. I was already tagged in a new post. Her post. It was public. Of course it was. The post had 2 photos. The first was the behind-the-scenes shot, the one the photographer must have snapped in the hallway. It was disgustingly well composed for a candid. It showed my back, rigid and defensive in my old army t-shirt. It showed me standing in the shadowed doorway, a faceless silhouette of rejection. In the foreground, bathed in the hallway light, was Lorna. Her head was bowed, one perfectly manicured hand pressed to her face, her shoulders visibly shaking. She looked like a Renaissance painting of a grieving mother. The second photo was an old one, dredged up from her digital archives. It was from a church picnic years ago, maybe 6 or 7, all 4 of us, in matching pale blue shirts, her idea, always, smiling wildly. She and my father looked parental and proud. Eli looked genuinely happy, and I was smiling too. It was a snapshot from a brief, forgotten moment of truce. Then the caption, it was a novel. My heart is just broken in a million pieces this morning. As many of you know, we have been working so hard to help my stepdaughter, Marlo, get back on her feet after her time in the service. We were so proud to help her get this beautiful new apartment, a place we all sacrificed for as a family, a place we hoped would be a new beginning for all of us. We just wanted to take one simple family photo this morning to celebrate. But I am afraid her time in the military has changed her. It has made her so hard, so cold. She wouldn't even let her little brother, Eli, inside for a glass of water. She told us we had no right to be there, in the home we all built together. I just wanted one picture. I just wanted my family. But I guess I am just the stepmother, and that will never be enough. Please, if you are the praying kind, please pray for our family. Pray for her heart to soften. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was brilliant. It was vicious. In 300 words, she had painted me as a cold, ungrateful, militarized monster and herself as a wounded saint, all while positioning the apartment as a gift from her. The post was less than 15 minutes old. It already had 47 comments. Lorna, you are a saint. I am just horrified. I will be praying for you. That was Karen from her Bible study. David, you need to handle your daughter. This is an embarrassment to your family name. That was a distant uncle. I am crying for you. Lorna, what kind of child does this? After all you have done for her, God will judge this kind of terrible ingratitude. Poor you, and poor sweet Eli. I always knew that girl was difficult. You are the best stepmother a child could ever ask for. Some people just do not know how to receive love. My fingers scrolled, numb. It was an avalanche. It was a digital stoning, and every one of her followers had a rock. Then came the private messages. These were worse. These were the daggers, slipped between the ribs. A text from Sarah, my best friend from high school, the one who had held my hair back when I got sick at prom. Marlo, what the hell? I just saw your mom's post. Did you really kick them out? Seriously, that is really low. Man, after they helped you buy a place. A Facebook message from a guy I barely knew in geometry class. Wow. Heard you were in the army but did not know you turned into a cold-hearted bitch. Your mom is a sweet lady. You should be ashamed. An email from my Aunt Patty in Ohio. My father's sister. Marlo, I am deeply, deeply disappointed in you. Your father is a good man, and Lorna has done nothing but try to love you, and you spit in her face. You owe her an apology. You owe your entire family an apology. This was the old game, but played on a terrifying new level. She had an army now. She had a congregation. She had a digital mob. All of them primed for years by her stepmom's Grace blog. All of them fed a steady diet of her heroic maternal sacrifices. I clicked over to Instagram, my thumb shaking. She had posted a story. It was a video. Shaky. Clearly filmed in the car just moments after they had left my building. Lorna was filming herself. Her eyes artfully red-rimmed. her voice thick with unshed tears. "Well," she sighed into the camera, "that did not go as planned, but that is okay. We are going to get some breakfast. Right, honey? We are going to have a good day anyway, aren't we?" She turned the camera. Eli was in the passenger seat, staring out the window. He looked pale, exhausted. When the camera focused on him, he flinched, then slowly turned. He manufactured the stiffest, most painful smile I have ever seen. His eyes were hollow. "Yeah, Mom," he mumbled. "A good day." Lorna turned the camera back to her own face, beaming through her pain. The caption was scrawled across the screen in a cheerful, bubbly font. "No matter how much we are hurt, this is what matters. Me and my boy. We will keep smiling. Family first, blessed stepmom, life strong." It was a hostage video. She was parading him, my little brother, as a trophy of her successful parenting, a living contrast to her failed, broken stepdaughter. I sank onto the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets. It was the exact same play, the same sickening, twisted playbook she had been running my entire life. I was 16 again, standing in the living room, my father's car keys in my hand. I had taken his car, with his explicit permission, to drive to a job interview at the mall. I was 15 minutes late getting back because a rainstorm had caused a massive backup on the freeway. I had walked in to find Lorna on the phone with the church pastor, sobbing. "I just do not know what to do," she cried. "She stole the car. Just took it. She is so rebellious. Pastor, I am so scared for her soul." By the time I got home, my father was waiting. He was not furious that I was late. He was furious that she was embarrassed. He did not listen to my explanation about the traffic. He did not care about the interview. My truth was irrelevant. I was grounded for a month for stealing the car and lying. Her narrative had won. And now she was doing it again. But I am not 16. I am not standing in her living room. I am sitting on my floor, in my apartment. My training kicked in. When you are ambushed, you do not charge into the kill zone. You find cover. You assess the threat. You gather intelligence. You do not react. You act. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. The buzzing finally stopped. I plugged it into my laptop. I methodically began to screenshot every single post, every comment, every text message. I used a screen recorder to save the Instagram story video before it disappeared in 24 hours. I created a new, encrypted folder on my hard drive. I labeled it Lorna, Evidence, 0600. I would not reply. I would not post a tearful defense. I would not get into a public comment war with Karen from Bible study. That is exactly what she wanted. She wanted me to look hysterical. She wanted me to look angry, unhinged. She wanted me to validate her story by fighting her in her arena, in front of her fans. I was not going to give her the satisfaction. My phone screen, dark and silent, suddenly lit up. One more notification had managed to push through. It was not a text. It was an Instagram direct message request. I did not recognize the account. The username was just a random jumble of letters and numbers. Kind Master 88. The profile picture was a blurry photo of a cat. I braced myself for another wave of hate and opened the message. It was not what I expected. It was not from one of her followers. It was not from one of my old, disappointed friends. It was just 3 words. "You're not crazy." Underneath the text was a single emoji, a small, black video camera. My breath caught in my throat. My heart gave a single, hard kick. This was not a variable I had accounted for. It was not someone I knew. My fingers, still cold, hovered over the screen. I typed back the only 2 words I could think of. "Who are you?" My phone was heavy in my hand. The screen glowed with the 2 words I had just typed. "Who are you?" The response came back almost instantly. The 3 little dots indicating the person was typing felt agonizingly slow. A new message popped up. "I'm in Eli's film club at school. His name is Alex. He is kind of weird, but he is a genius with a camera. Look, I just figured you should know his mom doesn't control all the videos. Before I could even process what that meant, a video file began to download in the chat window. A small thumbnail appeared. I stared at it, my heart hammering a new, strange rhythm against my ribs. It was not a rhythm of fear. It was confusion. I tapped the file. The video player opened. The clip was short, maybe 20 seconds. It was shaky, filmed from a low angle, maybe waist height. The audio, however, was terrifyingly clear. It was the hallway, just minutes ago. "Open this door," I heard Lorna's voice, shrill and commanding. "Today is the family photo shoot. This apartment is for the whole family, not just you." Then, my own voice. "This is my apartment. My name is on the deed. My name is on the VA loan. My name is on the utilities. If you want to take pictures, Lorna, you should have called to ask the owner." I winced, listening to myself. I had been braced for my voice to sound high, shaky, angry, but it did not. It was low. It was flat. It was the voice of a person stating facts. It was the voice of the person who had been described as ungrateful and cold and hard, but it was not the voice of the hysterical, out-of-control monster Lorna was painting me as in her Facebook post. The photographer's nervous shuffling was audible. Then the camera angle dipped sharply, pointing straight down at a pair of worn sneakers, Eli's sneakers, but the microphone was still hot. I heard Lorna's voice change. The public projection was gone, replaced by the venomous, intimate whisper I knew better than my own name, the whisper she used right before the mask came off. "Don't just stand there like an idiot," she hissed. The sound was so close to the phone it was distorted. "Smile. Put a smile on your face. When I post this, people need to know that I tried to fix this, not that bitch." The video ended. I sat on my floor, staring at the black screen. He filmed it. He filmed her. He had his phone out, not to text, but to record. My fingers fumbled, typing back a reply to this, "Alex, where did you get this? How?" The answer came back. Eli filmed it when he saw the photographer. He palmed his phone. He said his mom checks his phone every night, so he sent it to me the second they got in the car. He deleted the original. He asked me to hold it for him. He said, in case things got bad for Marlo. He seemed really scared. I don't know. I just saw her post and, well, it seemed like things were bad. He knew. He anticipated this. My little brother. The boy who had been reduced to a smiling prop in her Instagram feed, the one who gave me those Band-Aids when I was 19, was still in there. He was not just a hostage. He was a prisoner of war, collecting intelligence. I was still trying to absorb the implications of this. The fact that Eli had an ally, that I had an ally. When my phone rang, it was not a notification. It was a full ringing call. The number was local, a 303 area code, but I did not recognize it. My first paranoid thought was that it was Lorna, calling from a different number to scream at me. My second was that it was one of her church friends, launching the next wave of the assault. I almost let it go to voicemail, but the discipline kicked in. Answer the threat. Identify. Assess. I swiped the screen. This is Keaton. Ms. Marlo Keaton? The voice on the other end was a woman's. It was fast, professional, and had zero patience. My name is Tessa Navarro. I'm an attorney with the Harbor Line Legal Network. We provide pro bono legal counsel to veterans and active duty service members in the Denver area. My mind raced. I'm sorry. I didn't contact you. I don't need a lawyer. I know, the voice said, cutting me off. This is a strange call, Ms. Keaton, but I am in a community action group on Facebook, and a post was, let's say, aggressively shared this morning by a Ms. Lorna Keaton. It was about you. I felt the shame and anger rise again. I've seen it. It's a lie. It's a private family matter. Normally, I would agree, Tessa Navarro said, her voice sharp. We don't get involved in domestic disputes, no matter how nasty. But your name was flagged in our system for a completely different reason about 20 minutes ago, and the coincidence was too big to ignore. It is no longer a private family matter. I stood up. What are you talking about? Flagged how? We just received an alert from one of our partner banks. They reported a suspicious, high-risk application. Someone was attempting to be added as a cosigner to a major, unsecured line of credit, using your service record and VA eligibility status as collateral. The application was flagged for review. The coffee I had sipped earlier turned to acid in my stomach. What? That is impossible. My credit is locked. I didn't apply for anything. You did not, Tessa agreed. But someone did it for you. The application was initiated under a limited power of attorney, citing family financial management for a service member. It references a property on, let me see here, 11th Avenue? My address. She read my address back to me. And it's signed by a Lorna Keaton. The phone felt slick in my hand. My mind flashed back to the overnight envelope, the stack of papers. Just to update your tax information. Just to pay your utility bills if you get deployed. The paper I had signed without reading. Oh my God, I whispered. The bank flagged it for 2 reasons, Tessa continued, her voice like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and cold. 1, the signature on the POA form was close, but it didn't perfectly match the signatures on your original VA loan documents. It was inconsistent. 2, when they cross-referenced your veteran status to verify the POA, your file automatically triggered an alert to us. Harborline exists specifically for this, Ms. Keaton, to stop predatory financial actions against service members, which, more often than not, come from their own families. The photographer, the brunch, the Instagram post, it all clicked into place, a horrifying tactical map. The picture, I said, my voice barely audible. The fight this morning, it was a setup. Of course it was, Tessa said, not unkindly. Lorna's post this morning is not a family drama. It is a preemptive strike. She is building a public narrative that you are unstable, ungrateful, and emotionally volatile. She is discrediting her witness. That way, when you finally discover that she is actively trying to commit financial fraud against you, and you explode, who is anyone going to believe? The sainted, long-suffering stepmother, or the hard, cold daughter who kicked her out? She was manufacturing her own defense. I sank back down to the floor, my legs too weak to hold me. This was not about a picture. This was not about her ego. This was grand theft. This was a felony. Ms. Keaton? Marlowe? Are you still there? I cleared my throat. Yes, I am here. What do I do? You listen to me, Tessa said, and her voice was a command. This is not an if or a maybe. This is fraud. If I were you, I would gather every single piece of paper you have with her name on it, every text message, every email. I want you to go through your drawers and find every envelope from a bank you might have ignored. Then you are going to come to my office. Not tomorrow, not after the weekend, today, soon. The call ended. The apartment was silent. But it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a combat operations center. The silence before a mission. I walked, on steady legs, to the kitchen. I opened the junk drawer. I pulled out the takeout menus, the rubber bands, the half-empty pack of batteries, and there it was, the envelope, the one from the commercial lending department that I had tossed aside, unopened, a week ago. My fingers did not tremble as I ripped it open. It was not junk mail. It was a pre-approval welcome letter. Dear Ms. Keaton and Ms. Keaton, we are pleased to offer you a preliminary line of credit based on the shared equity in your property. The floor did not drop out. My training caught me. The hot, messy, confusing anger of a daughter evaporated, and what replaced it was the cold, sharp, beautiful focus of a soldier. This was not a family squabble. This was an enemy action. I was not in my apartment. I was back in the barracks, my field pack open, taking inventory of my gear, getting ready for a fight. I went to my laptop and opened the Lorna evidence folder. I saved the video file from Alex. I picked up my phone and messaged the KindMaster88 account. Thank you. Alex, I need you to do one more thing. Tell Eli I am not mad at him. Tell him I understand. And tell him I am starting the counteroffensive. And this time, I have the ammunition. I stood up and hit the print button, my cheap inkjet printer, the one I had bought on sale. Word to life. It began to spit out page after page. Lorna's Facebook post, the 47 comments, the 63 comments, the screenshot of my high school friend's disappointed text, the screenshot of my aunt's email. I grabbed the thick manila folder from the entryway. I added the newly printed screenshots. I added the fraudulent pre-approval letter. I added the copy of the power of attorney I had stupidly, thankfully, kept. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and the folder. I walked out of my apartment and locked the door behind me. I was not running. I was not retreating. I was, for the first time in my life, attacking. And I was going to do it on my terms, on my territory. I was walking into a lawyer's office, and I was going to end this. The Harbor Line Legal Network office was not a gleaming glass tower. It was on the third floor of an old brick walk-up, smelled of burnt coffee and printer toner, and was piled high with manila folders that looked just like mine. It was a place that did its work in the trenches, not in the clouds. Tessa Navarro did not waste a single second. I had been in her small, cluttered office for less than 5 minutes. My manila folder, the one I had carried out of my apartment like a shield, was already splayed open across her metal desk. The harsh fluorescent light made the ink on the pages look stark and accusing. She tapped the document I had signed years ago, the one Lorna had mailed to my base, the one I had foolishly skimmed. "This is your entry point of failure," Tessa said, her voice sharp, not unkindly. It was a diagnosis. "Standard limited power of attorney. You signed this? Looks like 2 years ago." "I know," I said, my voice tight. "I was coordinating a move. I was working 60-hour weeks. She said it was for utility bills. I didn't read the fine print." "Nobody reads the fine print when family is involved," Tessa said, waving it off as if it were an irrelevant symptom. "That is what they count on. But that is not the real weapon. This..." She slid another single sheet of paper across the desk, a paper I had never seen before. "This is the addendum she filed 6 months ago, notarized and attached to your original. Is this your signature, Ms. Keaton?" I looked. It was my name, Marlo Keaton, written in a flowing cursive that was almost, but not quite, mine. The K was too round. The loop on the final E was too tight, too controlled. It was a forgery, a good one, but a forgery nonetheless. "No," I said. The word was cold and heavy. "Absolutely not." "I did not think so," Tessa said. She leaned back, her chair groaning in protest. "She used your original, legitimate POA to gain access to your file with the mortgage company. Then she filed this forged addendum, renewing her authority and, more importantly, expanding it. The original was just for basic inquiries. This..." She tapped a paragraph that was dense with legal jargon. "This one gives her the right to initiate, negotiate, and execute applications for secured and unsecured credit on my behalf, for the purposes of family asset security and growth." "Family asset security," Tessa repeated, her voice dripping with pure, uncut sarcasm. A phrase so meaningless it can mean anything. "She took this forged document and your pristine service record to 2 different lenders in the last 30 days. The first one, a major national bank, kicked it back. Their automated fraud department flagged the signature discrepancy between this forgery and your original VA loan signatures. They are the ones who alerted our network." My heart, which had been beating a steady, angry rhythm, seemed to stop. "The second bank," she continued, picking up the very letter I had pulled from my junk drawer. "This, Apex Commercial Lending. They are smaller, hungrier, less scrupulous. They did not flag the signature. They saw a high credit score and a VA-backed property. As of this morning, they are in the final stages of reviewing an application for a $100,000 business loan." I felt the air leave my lungs. "A business loan? What business?" Tessa pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and looked at a printout. "According to the application, it is for a new startup, a lifestyle consulting brand. Registered just last month. It is called Stepmom's Grace, LLC. I did not scream. I did not cry. A sound erupted from my chest. A dry, harsh, single bark of laughter that sounded like a breaking stick. Of course it is. I looked at Tessa, the reality of the morning's ambush slamming into me with the force of a physical blow. She was not just building an audience with her blog. She was building a customer base. She was going to use my apartment, my service, my name, as collateral to launch her brand. My house was going to be the backdrop for her new career as a successful stepmom entrepreneur. It makes perfect, twisted sense, I said, the words feeling like gravel in my mouth. If Apex approves this, Tessa said, her voice grave and pulling me back to the immediate threat. They will place a priority lien on your property. She defaults on that loan, and these lifestyle brands have a 90% failure rate. They come for their security. They come for your apartment. You lose everything. She gets the seed money. You get the ruin. And she already has the public story in place, does not she? The ungrateful, unstable daughter who could not handle her finances and lost the gift her sainted mother gave her. Tessa leaned forward, her focus absolute. So here is what we do, right now. First, we contact Apex Commercial and the First Bank. We inform them of the active fraud investigation and the forged signature. We send them a cease and desist and a full, immediate revocation of any and all power of attorney agreements, real or forged. Second, I am personally walking you through placing a full fraud alert and a credit freeze with all three bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. From this moment on, nothing moves on your credit without your explicit, multi-step, verbal consent. Third, she paused. We prepare for the backlash. Backlash? When that loan is denied, and it will be by noon tomorrow, she is going to lose her mind, Tessa said simply. She is not just going to be embarrassed, she is going to be cornered. Her entire plan will be in flames. She will come at you, and she will use the only weapons she has left, your father, your brother, and her public audience. As if summoned by her words, my phone, which I had placed face down on her desk, buzzed. It was not a call. It was another DM from Kindmaster88. From Alex. She's prepping for another video, the message read. She's been screaming at Eli for an hour. He just sent me 3 more clips. This is bad. I turned the phone around and showed the screen to Tessa. This is the complication. My little brother, he has been recording her. Play them, she said. I opened the first file. The video was shaky, the audio muffled, clearly recorded from inside a pocket. It was Lorna's voice, not yelling, but that high, tight, rehearsing voice, the one she used when she was practicing for a performance. And I just have to explain to my community, from the bottom of my heart, how devastating it is when you give everything, your whole life, to a child, only to have them turn on you. It is not about the money. It is never about the money. It is about the betrayal. The file ended. A new one popped up. This time, the camera was steadier. It was aimed at Eli, who was sitting at the kitchen table, his face pale and drawn. Lorna was off screen. Okay, Eli, again, Lorna's voice snapped. If Mrs. Peterson from church asks you what happened this morning, what do you say? Eli mumbled, his eyes on the table. That Marlo was having a bad day. No, the word was a slap. Not a bad day. That sounds weak. That sounds excusable. You say, Marlo is going through some things, and she does not understand the meaning of family sacrifice. Mom just wanted to help her. And Marlo said terrible things. Can you remember that? Terrible things. Look at me. Practice smiling when you say it. It has to look like you are sad for her, not angry at her. Try it, now. Eli looked up, his eyes finding the lens of the phone he had propped up. His face was a mask of pure misery. He produced that same, stiff, hostage smile from the car. She said, terrible things. Tessa just watched, her jaw tight. She is coaching him. She is manufacturing a witness. Then, a third video. This one was different. It was dark, filmed under a desk or in a closet. The camera was pointed up at Eli's own face, lit only by the bright screen of the phone he was holding. He was whispering, his eyes wide and bright with fear, looking right at me. "Alex, send this one to her. Please," he whispered, his voice cracking with a terror that cut straight through me. "Marlo, if you are seeing this, it means I did what Alex said. I am choosing the truth, but I am scared. Mom checks my phone every night. She checks the Wi-Fi router logs. I have to use the school's network to send this. She's been practicing her victim speech in the mirror. She keeps telling Dad that she mortgaged everything for my future, and that you are trying to steal that future away from me. She is turning me into a prop. I do not want to be a prop. I do not want to lie anymore." The video cut out. I closed my eyes. The cold, logical anger of the legal fight was suddenly flooded by a hot, sharp ache in my chest. He was not just a witness. He was her second victim, the son she was grooming, polishing, and shaping into the perfect, obedient tool, just as she had tried, and failed, to shape me. "I promised myself," I said, my voice thick, speaking to Tessa but also to myself. "I promised I would never do anything that resulted in a kid getting hurt. I cannot use these, not if it means she turns on him. You saw what she did to me for just a smile. What will she do to him for this? This is treason." Tessa nodded, her sharp, lawyerly focus softening for a fraction of a second. "You are right, and we will not yet. The videos are our counter-narrative, but they are not our opening move. The legal battle comes first. We use the fraud, we use the forgery, we cut off her money, and we do it cleanly, surgically, and legally. We make her desperate." "And the videos?" I asked. "We hold them," Tessa said, and her voice turned to steel again. "We keep them as our trump card. We are not throwing your brother to the wolves just to win a social media fight. This is not about that. This is about protecting your assets and your safety. But if she tries to escalate this publicly after the legal notices go out, if she tries to paint you as the villain again to cover her tracks, then we have a choice. And if Eli decides to speak, it will be his choice, on his terms, when he is physically and legally safe." I nodded, the cold determination returning. We had a plan, a two-pronged attack, legal and informational. I spent the next hour on the phone with Tessa, on three-way calls with bank fraud departments, my voice flat and professional as I used phrases like fraudulent power of attorney and identity theft and immediate credit freeze. It was a strange, sterile, administrative kind of warfare. As I was packing my now much thicker folder to leave, my phone buzzed one last time. It was from Alex. "He just sent this. He said, tell her this is the one she is planning. He has to go. His mom is home." It was not a video. It was a single, blurry photograph. It was a picture of Lorna's home office desk. On it, an old, leather-bound family photo album was open. Next to it was a yellow sticky note. The handwriting on the note was Lorna's, loopy, controlled, perfect. But the words were a battle plan. "Church fundraiser. Mother of the Year speech. Bring album. Get Eli to speak. Final push." And then, at the bottom of the photo, just visible, was a scrap of paper, in Eli's messy, rushed scrawl, held up for the camera to see. "This time," it read, "I'll be the one taking the picture." The phone call came 2 days after the banks had frozen her out. The cease and desist notices had landed. The fraud alerts were active. The $100,000 business loan for Stepmom's Grace, LLC, had not just been denied. It had been flagged and terminated. The silence from Lorna's end had been heavy, absolute, and terrifying. I knew it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of a predator reevaluating the terrain. Then, Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was my father's number. I let it ring twice, took a breath, and answered. Hello? Marlo, honey, it's your mother. Lorna's voice. It was not screaming. It was worse. It was wet, fragile, and trembling, laced with the manufactured tears I knew so well. What do you want, Lorna? Oh, Marlo, please, she whispered, a dramatic catch in her voice. This has all gone too far. These lawyers, and these threatening letters. This isn't us. This isn't our family. Your father is a wreck. And Eli, honey, he just misses his big sister so much. He keeps asking why you're so angry, why you're trying to hurt us. The Eli card. It was her classic, poisoned ace. He just wants to see you, she continued, her voice breaking artfully. Please, can you just come over for dinner? Thursday night, just us. We'll eat. We'll talk. No lawyers. No anger. Let's just solve this as a family. Like normal people. I'll make your favorite. That roast chicken you used to love. Please. I was silent, my eyes on the wall of my apartment. I saw Tessa Navarro's face in my mind, her sharp, intelligent eyes. She will come at you, and she will use your brother. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. I called Tessa immediately. It's a trap, I said, no preamble. She wants me to come for dinner. Solve this as a family. Tessa was quiet for a beat. Then, good, you're going. What? You told me not to engage. I said not to engage publicly, Tessa corrected me, her voice all business. She has just been served with fraud and cease and desist papers. She is cornered. She is desperate to get you in a room without a lawyer, to manipulate you, to guilt you, to threaten you into dropping this. She is going to try to get you on her turf, make you the 19-year-old girl again, and bully you into submission. So why am I walking into the ambush? Because you're not walking in as a daughter. You're walking in as a client, Tessa said. You're going to go, and you are going to be polite, and you are going to put your phone in your breast pocket, and you are going to hit record on the voice memo app before you even ring the doorbell. You will not yell. You will not cry. You will let her talk. You will let her threaten. You will let her admit what she did. This isn't a family dinner. Marlo, it's a deposition. You are gathering the evidence we need to win. Thursday night, I stood on the familiar, worn welcome mat of my father's house. I had a bottle of grocery store wine in one hand, a prop of normalcy, in my jacket pocket. My phone was dark, the red recording light silently capturing the audio. I had copies of the bank faxes and the Harbor Line report in my purse, tucked under my wallet. I rang the bell. The performance began instantly. My father opened the door, his face a mask of forced, painful joviality. Marlo, you made it. Come in, come in. The house smelled of thyme and roasted garlic. The dining room table was set with the good china, the plates with the gold rims that Lorna only ever used for Christmas or when the pastor came to dinner. Candles were lit. It was a stage, perfectly set for a play titled The Happy Forgiving Family. Lorna came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a linen apron, a bright, brittle smile plastered on her face. Honey, you're here. Oh, thank you for coming. She pulled me into a stiff, papery hug. Eli was already at the table, sitting bolt upright, his eyes fixed on his empty plate. He looked pale, and he would not look at me. We sat. The air was so thick I could barely breathe. My father tried to make small talk about the weather, about my new job, but the words just fell onto the table and died. Lorna brought out the chicken. She served everyone, her movements fluid and practiced. Finally, when everyone had a full plate of food they were not eating, she put down her fork, clasped her hands, and looked at me. Her lower lip began to tremble. Right on cue. Marlo, she began, her voice cracking. I don't understand why you would do this to us, why you would bring in lawyers, and tell the bank these horrible things. I don't understand why you want to drag your family to court. She took a shaky breath, her eyes filling with tears. I was only trying to help. I was trying to build something for our future. For Eli's future. She reached across the table and put her hand on Eli's shoulder. He flinched. I borrowed your name. It was just paperwork. For the family. I put my own fork down, very gently, on the gold-rimmed plate. I did not raise my voice. You didn't borrow my name. Lorna, I said, my voice as calm and steady as the candlelight. You forged my signature on a legal document. The tears in her eyes vanished. Her posture stiffened. I did no such... And you weren't building a future for Eli, I continued, cutting her off cleanly. You were trying to get a $100,000 business loan to launch your stepmom's Grace TikTok brand. You were going to use my apartment, the one I paid for, as your collateral. You were going to use my VA eligibility as your startup capital. My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the good china. Marlo, that is enough. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't you dare speak to your mother that way. It was a clerical error. A simple misunderstanding with the papers. That's all it was. Banks. Banks make these mistakes all the time. I looked at him, my father, the man who hid in his study, the man who traded his daughter for a quiet life. I reached into my purse, took out the folded papers, and placed them on the table, right next to the gravy boat. Is this a mistake, Dad? I unfolded the facts from the first bank. This line here, the one I've highlighted, fraudulent co-application attempt, that's the bank's term, not mine. I unfolded the letter from Harborline. Or this one, report of forged signature on power of attorney addendum, or this one, from Apex Commercial. Immediate termination of loan application pending fraud investigation. I read the words without emotion. Each one was a nail, hammered into the polished wood of her perfect dining room table. These aren't misunderstandings, Dad, I said quietly. These are felonies. My father's face went from red to a pasty, sickly white. He looked at the papers, then at Lorna, his mouth opening and closing. Lorna, however, was not finished. Her victimhood had failed. Her shield was broken. So she drew her sword. Her face, which had been a mask of tearful fragility, hardened into something ugly and familiar. The real Lorna. I see, she hissed, her voice dropping to that low, venomous tone from the hallway. I see what this is. It's that lawyer, isn't it? That little bitch you found. And your time in the service, it ruined you. Marlo, it did exactly what I was afraid it would do. It made you hard. It made you cold. She leaned across the table, her eyes burning into mine. You can't be happy. You can't just be part of a family that loves you. You always have to find an enemy, don't you? You always have to be the soldier, the hero. You always need someone to fight, just to prove that you're better than us. I didn't need to find an enemy, Lorna, I said, my voice just as cold, just as steady. You cast me as the villain before I was even old enough to drive. I just spent 19 years playing the part you wrote for me, the grateful, silent, difficult prop in your perfect family play. I folded my hands on the table. I'm just declining the role. She stared at me, her chest heaving. She was losing. She knew it. The recording was capturing it. My father was useless. Staring at the congealing chicken on his plate, she was out of ammunition. So she turned her cannons on the only undefended target. Eli, she snapped, her voice sharp as glass. Eli jumped, his fork clattering onto his plate. Eli, honey, Lorna said, her voice instantly transforming, becoming sweet, pleading, and deeply threatening all at once. Tell your sister. Tell her what we talked about. Tell her that this is our family. Tell her you wanted this. Tell her you wanted the family name on the house so you would feel secure. Tell her that we are a family. And families share everything. It was a command. She was ordering him to lie, to become her co-conspirator, right in front of me. The silence in the room was absolute. It was suffocating. We all looked at Eli. He was shaking, his head bowed, his knuckles white where he gripped the edge of the table. Eli, Lorna warned, her voice dropping. Look at me. Tell her. Eli slowly raised his head. He did not look at his mother. He did not look at his father. He looked, for the first time all night, directly at me. His eyes were full of a terror I had not seen since he was 9 years old, standing on the stairs, clutching a teddy bear. He stammered. I don't. Tell her, Eli! He took a single, shuddering breath, and he spoke. His voice was a reedy, trembling whisper, but in the silence of that room, it was as loud as a gunshot. I just want Marlo to be safe, he said. His eyes locked on mine. In her own house. It was done. The lie was broken. My father made a small, strangled sound. Lorna's face did not just get angry, it collapsed. The mask of the mother, the victim, the righteous woman, it all disintegrated, leaving behind nothing but pure, distilled hatred. She knew she could not scream. She knew she could not throw a plate. She knew, somehow, that this was a performance and she was losing the audience. So she delivered her final line, a quiet, toxic payload aimed directly at her son. She smiled. It was a terrible, thin smile. I see. Well, it is good to know where everyone stands. If you choose her, Eli, if you choose this, then don't come crying to me when I'm old and sick, and there's no one to take care of me. Choices have consequences. I stood up. The scraping of my chair leg on the wood floor was brutally loud. I picked up my purse, leaving the copies of the evidence on the table. They could keep them. This was not a negotiation, Lorna, I said, my voice clear and final. It was a notification. I came here tonight, as advised by my lawyer, to confirm that you had received the cease and desist. You clearly have. I looked at my father, who was still staring at his plate, a broken man. I looked at Eli, who was still looking at me. His face pale, but his eyes, for the first time, resolved. From now on, I said, all communication will go through Tessa Navarro at the Harborline Legal Network. We are done talking over dinner. We will talk through our lawyers. I turned and walked out of the dining room, down the hall, and out the front door. I did not run. I did not look back. I got into my car, shut the door, and only then did I stop the recording. I looked back at the house, at the warm, golden light of the dining room, a perfect picture of a family dinner. I saw my father's confused shadow, and I saw Eli, still sitting at the table, a lone, silent dissenter. Something in him had broken tonight, but it was not his spirit. It was his chains. The dinner was a tactical victory, but the war was far from over. The legal cease and desist had cut off Lorna's line of attack, but it had also, as Tessa predicted, made her spectacularly desperate. The woman I saw at the dining room table was not a defeated enemy. She was a cornered animal, and now she was going to chew her own leg off to get free. The invitation arrived a week later. It was not a text. It was a thick, cream-colored card, mailed to my apartment, addressed in my father's hesitant script. The church's annual Spring Fellowship fundraiser. Inside, a smaller, gold-embossed card was tucked. Honoring our community's inspiring mothers, Lorna Keaton. Lorna, the woman who had committed felony fraud against her stepdaughter, was being honored as an inspiring mother. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. Tucked into the fold of the invitation was a handwritten note from Lorna herself, on her personalized Stepmom's Grace stationery. Marlo, I know things are tense, but this is not about us. This is about the good work of the church. This is about your brother and your father. If you have one shred of conscience, one particle of the girl I raised, you will be there. You will come, and you will support this family in front of our community. Do not embarrass your father further. It was not an invitation. It was a threat, a summons, a dare. She's insane, I said to Tessa, holding the card over the speakerphone. She's actually insane. She's doubling down. Of course she is. Tessa's voice came back, calm and dry. This is her final stronghold, the church, her community, her followers. This is the one place where she is not a fraud suspect. She is a saint, This is her appeal to the highest court she has, public opinion. She thinks she can shame you into silence. She thinks you won't dare make a scene in a house of God. So I'm not going, I said. I'm not going to sit there and watch that pageant. No, Tessa said. You're going. You have to. I was silent. Tessa, that is exactly what she wants. I know, but I got a call this morning from Alex. Kind Master 88. He's in the church AV club. He's running the soundboard for the event. He passed on a message from Eli. My stomach tightened. What did he say? 3 sentences, Tessa said. He said, "Tell her the sticky note was real. Tell her I'm tired of being a prop, and tell her she needs to be there. I need her to see it." I closed my eyes. He's going to do something. He's going to do something, Tessa agreed. And I don't know what it is, which is why you and I are both going. Not as guests, not as family, as witnesses. We are going to stand in the back. We are not going to engage, and we are going to be there to provide legal cover for a minor if he needs it. Wear something professional, Marlowe, and bring the folder. The fellowship hall was packed. It was a sea of pastel-colored sweaters, khaki pants, and the smell of weak coffee and sheet cake. Hundreds of people, the entire congregation, her entire social media army, all gathered in one place. On a massive projector screen above the stage, a slideshow was already running. It was a greatest hits of Lorna's curated life. Lorna and my father, arms linked, beaming at a bake sale. Lorna and Eli, his face frozen in that practiced smile, holding a church cleanup day banner. Lorna reading to a group of children in Sunday school. And then I appeared. It was me, age 22, in my uniform, on one of my short visits home. She had her arm looped through mine. I was looking away from the camera, my face exhausted and tight. But she had added a soft focus filter and a digital vignette, turning my grimace into what she probably passed off as humble strength, and then another. The 19-year-old from the studio, the photo I had seen on the banner, my mouth warped into that grotesque Photoshop smile. "This is," I whispered, my stomach turning. "This is sick." "It's psychological warfare," Tessa murmured beside me, her eyes scanning the room, assessing every exit, every face. She was not a guest. She was on overwatch. The lights dimmed. Pastor Mike, a man with a booming voice and a politician's smile, stepped up to the podium. "Friends, thank you. Thank you for coming out to support our spring drive," he beamed. "Tonight, we have so much to be thankful for, but we also want to take a moment to honor one of our own, a woman who exemplifies grace, sacrifice, and the Christian spirit of family, a woman who, as many of you know, opened her heart and her home to a child who was not her own, and raised her as her very own flesh and blood." My hands balled into fists inside my jacket pockets. "She has built a life of service, a life of love," the pastor continued, his voice rising with theatrical emotion. "And now, she is even using the beautiful new home she and David provided for their daughter as a sanctuary, a place of healing for so many lost souls who follow her ministry online. Please, put your hands together for this year's inspiring mother, Lorna Keaton." The applause was deafening. The entire room stood up. Lorna emerged from the side of the stage, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, already in character. She was wearing a simple, elegant white dress, the picture of purity. My father followed a step behind her, looking gray and uneasy. And behind him, walking stiffly in a suit that was too big for him, was Eli. He was carrying a laptop. He sat on a small stool set back from the podium, near the projector cables. Lorna walked to the center of the stage, took the microphone, and the spotlight hit her. She looked, for all the world, like an angel. Eli, I saw, was given a small, black remote, the clicker. He was in charge of her slides. "Thank you," Lorna whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank you, Pastor. I am just so humbled. I don't deserve this. I really don't." Tessa and I stood in the deep shadow at the back of the hall. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I had my hand on the manila folder in my bag. I could feel the crisp edges of the bank faxes. "I have always believed," Lorna began, her voice gaining strength, "that being a mother is not about blood, it is about love. A love that sacrifices, a love that endures, and a love that forgives." She looked out over the crowd, her eyes shining with practiced tears. "As many of you know, it has been a hard road. I was blessed with my beautiful son, Eli." She gestured to him. Eli stared at his laptop, unmoving. "But God also tested me. He sent me a spirited, rebellious, beautiful girl, my daughter, Marlo." I could feel 100 pairs of eyes scanning the room, looking for me. I stayed in the shadow. "I loved that girl like my own," Lorna cried. "I guided her. I prayed for her. I disciplined her when she strayed. And I was so proud when she found her path. But as you know, sometimes the world, sometimes money, and pride, and a hard heart can blind us." She was doing it. She was spinning the fraud, the legal action, as my fall from grace. She was painting me as the one blinded by money. "But I will never, ever give up on her," she sobbed. "My love is unconditional. I will always be there, my arms open, my home open." On the screen behind her, the slideshow had been running, the photos of Eli, the photos of the church. Now, Eli's finger, shaking, moved to the clicker. The next slide clicked into place. It was the photo from my apartment, the fake one, the one she had composited, showing her, my father, and Eli, all smiling, with my apartment in the background, a space I had never invited them into. "This," Lorna said, her voice thick with emotion, pointing at the screen. "This was all I wanted. A picture, a moment, in the home our family built. That is all I ever—" Eli did not click next. His thumb moved, and he pressed play. The slide did not change. The audio of the hall's speaker system did not hiss. It was silent. And then, the massive 10-foot screen behind Lorna's head flickered and went black. A new image appeared. It was shaky. It was the view from Eli's waist. The entire hall, hundreds of people, heard Lorna's real voice, tinny and sharp from the phone's microphone, blast through the fellowship hall. "Open this door. This apartment is for the whole family, not just you." People gasped. A wave of confused murmuring swept the room. Lorna, who had not yet seen the screen change, was still in her tearful pose. "This was our dream." Then my voice, calm, cold, clear. "This is my apartment. My name is on the deed. My name is on the VA loan. My name is on the utilities." "What? What is this?" someone whispered loudly in the front row. Lorna's head whipped around. She stared at the screen. Her face, in the glare of the spotlight, turning from beatific white to a sickly mottled gray. But the video did not stop. It cut. Now it was the clip of Lorna, rehearsing in her mirror. "I just have to explain how devastating it is when you give everything to a child." Another cut. Now it was Eli, at the kitchen table, his face a mask of misery, and Lorna's voice, sharp and off-screen. "No, not a bad day. You say, Marlo said terrible things. Practice smiling when you say it. Try it, now." The hall was dead silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle, the sound of 200 people holding their breath. I saw Karen from the Bible study, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Another cut, the final one, the audio from the hallway, just the audio, over a black screen. Lorna's venomous, private whisper. "People need to know that I tried to fix this, not that, bitch." The word echoed, bounced off the cinder block walls of the fellowship hall. Lorna lunged for the podium microphone. The angel was gone. The mask was vaporized. Her face was a twisted, purple mask of pure, primal fury. "Turn it off," she shrieked, the feedback screaming through the speakers. "Turn it off! Eli! Eli! What are you doing?" She scrambled toward him, trying to grab the laptop, but Eli stood up, holding the remote clicker in one hand like it was a detonator. He was shaking from head to toe, tears streaming down his face. But he did not run. He held his ground. And he stepped to the pastor's podium, to the second microphone. "Eli, you get down from there," Lorna screamed. My father looked like he had been shot, frozen in his chair. "I'm sorry," Eli whispered, and his small, broken voice filled the entire cavernous room. "I'm sorry. Everyone, I can't lie anymore." He looked out, not at his mother, but at the crowd, at all of them. Marlo didn't kick us out," he sobbed. That's a lie. She wasn't being hard. She was just protecting herself. My mom. She was trying to take her apartment. She was trying to steal my sister's house." It was pandemonium. Pastor Mike was running onto the stage. 2 organizers were trying to grab Lorna, who was still screaming. "He's lying. He's confused. Marlo did this. She poisoned him." And in the middle of the chaos, Tessa Navarro took a single step out of the shadows and into the aisle. She held up one hand. She was not yelling, but her voice, calm and full of legal authority, cut through the noise. "Pastor Mike," she called out. The pastor stopped, looking confused. "My name is Tessa Navarro. I am Ms. Marlo Keaton's legal counsel from the Harbor Line Legal Network. What that young man is saying," she pointed at Eli, "is the truth. We have an active open file on Ms. Lorna Keaton for financial fraud, identity theft, and forgery. This is not a family squabble. It is a criminal matter." She held up the manila folder. The entire room saw it. The evidence. The murmuring in the crowd was no longer confused. It was angry. "Did she say forgery?" "Oh my God. Karen, we shared that post. If this is true, all those years, what else was a lie?" I did not move. I did not step forward. I did not need to. I just stood in the back of the room, my bag on my shoulder, and I watched my brother. He was standing alone on the stage, the spotlight still on him, tears on his face. He was not smiling. He was not a prop. He was not posing for a picture. He was, for the first time in his entire life, completely, terrifyingly, and beautifully real. And it was the bravest face I had ever seen. The fellowship hall was not a courtroom, but a verdict had been rendered. The social execution was immediate. Lorna's Inspiring Mother Award was quietly rescinded before the night was even over. The Stepmom's Grace blog went dark 2 days later, the comments section having become an unmanageable inferno of betrayal and disgust from her former followers. But the social victory was not the legal one. Harbor Line Legal Network filed the full civil complaint the next morning. The case was assigned to a local family and civil court judge. Lorna, through a high-priced lawyer she must have retained with her last remaining funds, immediately petitioned to have the hearing sealed. Her motion, dripping with hypocrisy, cited the need to protect the privacy and emotional well-being of my minor son, Eli, from further public trauma. Tessa Navarro stood up in the preliminary hearing and addressed the judge with a voice like ice. "Your Honor, Ms. Keaton's concern for her son's privacy is recent. For the past 8 years, she has used that same son as a primary marketing tool for her public-facing brand, posting hundreds of videos and images of him, his location, and his personal life to a global audience. Her request is not to protect her son. It is to protect her reputation from the evidence of her own actions." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, denied the motion to seal. "This case involves financial fraud, not just a custody dispute," she stated, her eyes hard. "You cannot shout your accusations from the rooftops and then whisper your evidence in a closet. Proceed." The day of the hearing, the small courtroom was tense. Lorna was there, in a severe dark blue suit, her face a mask of pale, tragic victimhood. My father sat behind her, looking like a man who had aged a decade in 2 weeks, his eyes hollow and empty. Lorna's lawyer went first, his voice smooth and placating. He painted a picture of a loving, if overly ambitious, mother. He claimed it was all a simple, profound misunderstanding. "Yes, my client is enthusiastic," he said, smiling condescendingly at Tessa. "Yes, she is passionate about building a better life for her family. Did she perhaps overstep in her eagerness to help? Did she get confused by complex financial paperwork that, frankly, many of us would find baffling? Of course, but this was not malice, Your Honor. This was love. This was a mother's ambition, a simple, human pressure to provide." Then it was Tessa's turn. She did not make an emotional speech. She did not raise her voice. She built a cage, bar by iron bar. "Your Honor, we are not here to discuss enthusiasm or pressure. We are here to discuss a pattern of calculated, deliberate, and fraudulent activity. We will now present this pattern in chronological order." She started with the forged power of attorney, the bank's official fraud report, highlighting the signature discrepancy, went up on the projector for the whole court to see. Next, the letters, the one from the first bank, declining the application due to suspicious activity, the pre-approval from Apex Commercial for $100,000, linked directly to Stepmom's Grace, LLC, with my apartment listed as the primary collateral. This was not confusion, Your Honor, Tessa said, her voice cutting through the silence. This was a targeted attempt to leverage Ms. Keaton's VA-backed assets, earned through her military service, to fund a private, for-profit business, all without her knowledge or consent. Then she played the audio from the dinner. The courtroom listened to the entire, agonizing 10 minutes. We heard Lorna's tearful invitation. We heard my father's weak protests of clerical errors. We heard Lorna's voice turn to venom. "It made you cold. You always have to find an enemy, don't you?" And we heard her final, chilling attempt to coerce her son. "Tell her you wanted this, Eli. Tell her we are a family, and families share everything." Lorna's lawyer was on his feet. "Objection! This is entrapment. This is an illegal recording." Tessa did not even look at him. "Your Honor, our state is a one-party consent state. My client was a party to the conversation and had every right to record it as evidence of Ms. Keaton's continued threats and admissions of financial malfeasance." The judge's face was grim. "Overruled. Sit down, counsel." And finally, Tessa said, "We address the issue of emotional duress and the weaponization of the minor child, Eli Keaton." She played the videos from the church, the full, undeniable evidence of Lorna coaching Eli, of her rehearsing her victim speech, of her hissed, private rage. When the final clip played, Lorna screaming, "He's lying! Marlo did this! She poisoned him!" A visible shudder went through the courtroom. Lorna had sunk in her chair, her face in her hands, but she was not crying. She was vibrating with a rage that had nowhere to go. The judge looked at the evidence, then at Lorna, then at me. Then she looked at Eli, who was sitting in the front row with a junior lawyer from Harbor Line. "Mr. Keaton," the judge said, her voice softening for the first time, "you have filed a petition, through your counsel, to amend your living situation. Is this correct?" Eli stood up. He was shaking, but he stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "And you wish to reside, on a part-time basis, with your half-sister, Ms. Marlo Keaton, until you are of legal age?" Lorna's head snapped up. "No, you can't. He's my son. She is unstable." "Ms. Keaton, you will be silent, or I will have you removed for contempt," the judge snapped. She turned back to Eli. "Son, I know this is hard. Can you tell me, in your own words, why you want to do this?" Eli looked at his mother. He looked at his father, who was staring at his own hands, and then he looked at me. For a long time," he began, his voice cracking, "I thought the most unthinkable thing in the world was going against my mom. I thought it was the scariest thing I could ever do. I thought it would ruin my life. He took a deep, shuddering breath. But the most unthinkable thing was not fighting her. The most unthinkable, and the scariest thing, was daring to choose a place where I didn't have to fake smile. I just want to live in a place where I don't have to practice being happy. I just want to be in a house where I don't have to lie. And Marlowe's house is the only place I know where that's true. Silence, complete, broken, heartbreaking silence. My father, the ghost at the feast, finally spoke. He was not looking at the judge. He was looking at me, and his face was a ruin of shame. I didn't do anything, he whispered, his voice thick. I didn't protect you. I didn't protect either of you. I looked at him, not with hatred, not even with anger, just with a vast, empty exhaustion. No, you didn't, I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the still room. But from now on, you can start by not being her accomplice. The judge made her ruling. It was not a compromise. It was an execution. First, she declared, her voice ringing with finality, the court affirms that the apartment on 11th Avenue is the sole and exclusive property of Ms. Marlo Keaton. Any and all attempts, past, present, or future, by Lorna Keaton to access, leverage, or co-opt this property are ruled fraudulent. Second, a permanent, binding restraining order is hereby issued. Lorna Keaton is barred from any and all access to Ms. Keaton's financial, medical, or military records and benefits for life. Third, Ms. Keaton is ordered to pay a financial penalty of $10,000 to Ms. Marlo Keaton for legal fees and damages, and she is further ordered to attend 1 year of mandatory financial and behavioral counseling. Fourth, a general harassment order is in effect. Ms. Keaton is to have no contact, direct or indirect, with Ms. Marlo Keaton or her property. Lorna started to rise, her face purple. But my son, you can't. The judge's eyes were black ice. And fifth, the court grants the petition of the minor, Eli Keaton. He will have a shared residency, effective immediately, as determined by a schedule set by his counsel and Ms. Marlo Keaton. And let me be perfectly clear, Ms. Lorna Keaton. If this court hears one single report, one text message, one blog post, one whispered threat of retaliation against your son for his testimony today, this order will become absolute, and you will lose all contact. Mr. Eli Keaton has a safe place to go. I suggest you remember that. It was over. We walked out of the courthouse into the bright, cold afternoon sun. A single local news reporter, probably tipped off by someone from the church, ran up, a microphone in her hand. Ms. Keaton, after all this, do you feel like this was a victory? I stopped. I looked at Eli, who was standing beside me, his shoulders back, blinking in the new, strange light of his freedom. No, I said, my voice flat. This was not a victory. This was pest control. This was just taking back what should never have been stolen in the first place. 3 days later, Eli showed up at my door. He had one small duffel bag and his school backpack. There was no tearful, cinematic reunion. It was awkward. He was a teenage boy. I was a sister I barely knew. So, I said, holding the door open, I got you a folding bed. It's supposed to be pretty comfortable. Cool, he mumbled, stepping inside. We spent the afternoon in a strange, quiet domesticity. We built the cheap metal frame bed. We argued over where to put it. He hung 2 movie posters that I knew Lorna would have despised, calling them clutter that ruined the aesthetic. The apartment was messy, and it was perfect. That evening, as we were figuring out what to order for pizza, he unzipped his backpack. He pulled out something wrapped in an old t-shirt. It was a camera, a nice one, a DSLR. Is that? Yeah, he said, not looking at me, his fingers tracing the lens. It's the one she bought. She was saving up for it. To make content. For the brand. He looked up. I took it. I figured it was kind of paid for by your apartment anyway. I laughed. A real, actual laugh. Yeah, I guess it was. He held it, weighing it in his hands. Hey, Marlo? Yeah. If it's okay, I was wondering, could we take a picture? I stiffened. The old reflex, the old dread. He saw it. He rushed to speak. No, not for anything, not to post, not for anyone, just for us, just to remember, today. I looked at him, at this kid, this stranger, who was my brother, who had saved me. Okay, I said, my throat thick. Yeah, okay, Eli, let's take a picture. He did not have a tripod, so he balanced the camera on the bookshelf, on top of a stack of my old military manuals. He set the timer. Okay, 10 seconds, he called out, running back to stand beside me. We stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes, pizza menus, and a half-built folding bed. The little red light on the camera blinked. Okay, get ready, he said. I braced myself, my muscles tensing, my face instinctively trying to pull itself into that old, familiar, painful mask of a smile. Marlo, he said, his voice quiet. I looked at him. You don't have to, he said. The little red light blinked faster. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 19 years. My shoulders dropped. My face relaxed. I just stood there. He just stood beside me. The shutter clicked. We walked over to the camera. He pressed the preview button. The small screen lit up. It was us. Just us. Standing in a messy room, I was not smiling. He was not smiling. We just looked, tired and relieved and real. It was the first time in my entire life I had ever looked at a photograph of myself and not felt like a liar. It was the first time I had ever seen a family photo that felt true. I watched him turn the camera off. He put the lens cap back on. Later that night, after he had fallen asleep on the folding bed, the sound of his breathing soft and steady in the quiet apartment, I picked up the camera. I walked over to the junk drawer in my kitchen, the one that used to hold the unopened letter, the one where I had kept the thick manila folder labeled Control for so long. The folder was gone. It was in a box, in a file, in Tessa's office. I opened the drawer. It was just a drawer now. I placed the camera inside, on top of the takeout menus and the rubber bands. It was not just legal papers in there anymore. It was not just my defense. It was a single, true picture. My revenge was not the courtroom. It was not the victory. It was not even her spectacular public downfall. My real revenge was this: the quiet click of a locked door, the sound of a boy sleeping safely in the next room, and the absolute, total, and final power to decide, for myself, who was allowed to be in the frame. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I am so glad I could share it with you. I am curious. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on this. Please, if this story resonated with you, subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Give this video a like, and give us some extra support by hitting that hype button. It really helps get these stories out to more people who need to hear them.